y dos, y dos, una, y dos, una, y dos.
Hello, and welcome to Cortesnyc Livestream podcast. This is a bi-weekly show broadcasting out of New York. It is hosted by myself, Cortesnyc, and
Carla de Puerto Rico.
And this is a podcast where we share our views about art, creativity, and city life from a Latino perspective. And this is episode 2, Status. Our first section, hashtag art life, we're going to be discussing what is success? How do you define it? What is it? Money? Fame?
We're also going to be talking on hashtag culture talk about how is the Latino experience presented in TV shows. And as always, we're going to teach you some Spanish words in Hablando Español.
So let's get on with it. Success. How do we define it?
What is it?
Yeah, usually as artists, we don't really get to think about that too much because the assumption is that we will all be starving artists and we're never going to see any money.
Right.
But I think at a certain point, you acknowledge it for yourself. You realize, well, wow, I reached that step I never thought I would. So what is it for you? What is that one point that you reach and you say, man, I never imagined that I would be doing this. Now I have made it. I am a successful artist.
Yeah. And also, like, does it means that you're going to be working a 9 to 5 in that art that you learned? Or does it mean that you're going to be doing it on your free time and then that's going to become a success for you because you can do both things at the same time?
Right. So I think we'll start with what is the typical assumption of what success means. Success usually for people means money.
Yeah.
Right? Before fame?
Definitely.
I think money. So you could be a very successful artist that nobody knows of. But you could be very rich and have a lot of money. That's not bad. That's not a bad gig.
I guess.
I think that's a common situation,
Yeah.
the most common situation. I think if you really think about it, it's impossible that we know all the artists out there. But there are a lot of artists out there that we don't ever hear about and are never going to know about that are successful, that make a lot of money, and they have families, they're maybe even wealthy, they can travel, they can do things, they have properties, they have whatever, that are financially successful. I think speaking about being financially successful, I would say for me, when I first started, I was late teens, early 20s when I first got my big, I want to say $350 check for doing some illustration project. And that was my first step into acknowledging that my art can make money. I think that it was my toe in the door, getting my foot in the door to acknowledging that I need to keep my eyes open because on the money part of it, because yes, I'm actually going to be able to make money with my art and that might mean success. And I might need to start evaluating how much money matters to me, because I remember at that age, money didn't matter. My art mattered. My art above all. Art was everything. And money didn't matter to me. Literally, you could offer me a ton of money and I wouldn't even understand the value of it because the art is what mattered. So I think that first check that I ever got, that little $350, back then seemed like so much money. And then within a couple of months, I was given $1,500 for a project, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "I got $1,500."
Millionaire.
Yeah, I'm a millionaire. You know what I mean? As a late teen, early, I would say, let's say 20-year-old. As a 20-year-old,
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money to be making out of art.
Yeah.
Out of a handshake and some art. You know what I mean? Like no contracts or anything. Just basically somebody liked my art. They hired me to do a project. I did the project and I got paid. And that is a big deal when no resumes, no business cards, they're just looking at your art and they're just taking you for face value that you're an artist.
That is a big deal.
Yeah, that will open up your mind to accepting definitions of success and what does it mean to be successful.
I was actually thinking about how do you think that being successful as an artist was, let's say, for Leonardo da Vinci? Because I guess it was going to be, it is a different, I mean, it was a different time. They were doing, like, art was literally their work. But I think that at the time that maybe he felt successful was when he managed to create other things outside from whatever people was asking him to do. Like, he had his different stuff that he didn't sell, like it was just designs and stuff like that, right?
I mean, there's no way to we can't go back in time and understand what they were going through, but I'm sure that at the time of Leonardo da Vinci or at the time of Michelangelo or any of these artists of that time period, Rembrandt or classical artists, I'm sure that they didn't have the same struggles that we do now. I don't think that they were worried about the social media, what they thought of them, or are they getting likes? Mm-hmm. Are they getting followers? I know that the world was smaller back then, so maybe it was easier to get fame.
Right.
And I know they were commissioned, all of them. They were all commercial artists back then. The concept of doing art for leisure, for recreation, that is a modern invention. That's not something that existed back then. In the classical times, art was an expensive thing. It was for the elite. To actually obtain the paint alone was like a technology.
I see.
So it was expensive. To get color was expensive. Any kind of color, outside of the raw basic charcoals and things like that. The pigment itself was expensive. So you weren't making art for the hell of it. You weren't, going to art colleges and just fiddling around with paint and trying to do abstractions and things. No, you actually had to be commissioned by, at that time, royalty or clergy to do a big project, an epic project for the elite community. Okay. You know what I mean? And so you had to be accountable to them. So I think at that time, it was very clear that fame, that money equaled success and fame equaled success, and it was all related. Mm-hmm. I think now, in modern times, is when we have this division where we can be very rich and not famous, or
very famous and
not rich. Exactly. Which we'll go into now the next topic, the next side of it.
Like
go for it.
Fame, for example, for you, right? Because basically you're kind of famous. A
little bit. I'm like I'm poor man's famous.
Yeah, exactly. No. But if you go to his YouTube/CortesNYC, you can see you have 12,000 followers, and that's not subscribers in YouTube. It will be, and that's not it's not easy to get. So how do you manage that? Like because I know that you should feel like a little bit like, oh my God, people are actually following me and they're liking what I do, but at the same time, it's not like I live for the attention of the people. Like, I know that from you. So how do you relate that to let's say your normal life?
Well, I think social media makes being famous very distorted. It distorts the concept of fame, because you can have a lot of subscribers for really dumb things now.
It's true.
Right? You can get subscribers for very dumb
definitely.
reasons. I'm not saying that what you do is dumb. You might be doing things that have meaning or whatever. I'm saying that it's not a direct correlation of your effort. Mm-hmm. You can get followers just from being viral.
Yeah. Like, you have just that one video that you didn't want anybody to watch.
Exactly.
But everybody saw it. It went viral, and then you got all these people following you.
So fame as an artist on social media now, and social media being the biggest part of it right now, because even when you come out of college, you're trained to be on social media as an artist.
Yeah.
I think social media can distort your perspective of fame. I think when I was growing up, famous would be somebody on television or somebody in the newspaper or somebody in a magazine.
Yeah.
And that was more difficult because you had more filters You know, you had an editor
Yeah, and you have to,
that had to approve you.
and you have to have connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think now to be an artist and to be famous and to allow that into your spirit as a sign of success is dangerous. I think for me personally, yes, when I first got a little fame back in the days, in magazines and newspapers and word of mouth, I think it was, I recognized it. I saw it as fame. I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting popularity. People know me. It never got to my head to the point where I needed to chase it, because I felt like I felt like it wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to chase fame. And I think for myself, between chasing fame or popularity and chasing money, I think I ended up at the end deciding more towards money because of my necessities, and realizing that it's no good to be a dead, starving, famous artist. I'd rather be a living, tummy full artist, eating and healthy, that I can continue to make more art.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to do me any good to burn out early. And I think if you focus on fame, you can burn out physically. If you focus on fame and don't take care of your necessities, the roof over your head, the clothing on your back, you know, it'll affect everything. It'll affect your psyche. It'll affect your well-being.
Yeah,
it'll affect your family life.
Creating fame, it takes so much from you. Like you have to really spend the time to create all these things and cater to so many people that maybe you even forget what is the real meaning of everything. And maybe you become part of this world that at the end of the day, they're not really with you. So it's not even like they're paying you. And it's true what you're saying. Like, if you really chase something that is real, that is going to really help you at the end, in the long run, I think it's worth it, right?
Yeah. And I think, so chasing fame can mislead you, right? So I don't necessarily say, I'm not saying here, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying chase money, but I'm saying when you look at fame and you look at money as a sign of success, I would say I respect more and can identify more people that will see financial stability as a sign of success, that you are financially stable enough to continue to create and to not be being held accountable to somebody else's needs. You know what I mean? That you yourself can sustain yourself and that you can continue to create with your own free mind. Yeah. That's a difficult tightrope to walk. And I think that's the balance that I try to find. When somebody says, what does success mean to you? You know, I think that's where it would land.
And it is difficult because it's difficult to balance both things, right? To balance, to, let's say, make money and then have the time and creativity to create. Yeah. Or just to create to get the fame, so then you get money. Yeah. And I think fame now, I feel like fame is something that will happen eventually. No matter what you do, and it comes and goes. That's another thing that I learned. If you're working really hard at something, whether you're a cartoonist, a graffiti artist, a fine artist, a musician, if you're working really hard at that and you're developing your skills and evolving your talent, you will eventually get some recognition. Yeah. There's going to be a circle of people that are going to recognize what your efforts, and they're going to follow you, and they're going to push and promote you, and they're going to open up doors for you. So I don't think it's necessary right now to chase fame. If you're an artist out there wondering these things, if you chase fame, you might end up one day catching fame and then losing it again. Right. But money will stay with you. If you learn how to make money, you can save your money, and you will learn skills that will make you more money, and that'll continue to grow. So between the thing about chasing fame and chasing money, I would say you chase money more. Now,
Now, backing up a little bit, what is success for me personally, right?
Yeah.
Because the topic was, what does success mean to you? Is it money or is it fame? For me, I'll add another element to this conversation. For me, success is that did you make something original, iconic, that nobody else has done before? Okay, that's another element that artists chase. Can you make that original thing that somebody will say, that was you, that was your purpose, you did that thing? Yeah. And I think that when you've reached that point where you've actually made something original, it kind of, for me, it was a sign of success. When I finally did that one thing that I was like, wow, you know, I actually made that effort, and at the end of the day, people remembered it. And 10 years later, people still look back and say, wow, that was really cool what you did then. That, to me, was a sign of success for me. More than the fame and more than the money is that you, when you realize that you affected somebody's life, that you created something that became part of some culture or somebody's upbringing, and you're like, wow, the thing that I did is still being talked about or still relevant. That is kind of important. Some artists chase that. I mean, if we want to talk about music, there's some musicians that have done that, right? That have made iconic songs that 20 years later people still sing and dance to.
Yeah, exactly. And they have done something different, and maybe at the moment they didn't thought it was going to be such a big deal, but then they realized that, oh yeah, it's part of our culture, and we made an impact in music, and maybe even worldwide. Everybody can listen to this. Yeah. But I guess that also comes from the background of the artist, because some artists, maybe if they go to fine art, maybe they have the support of their parents and they come from a rich family. Maybe they think that what they have to chase is the fame because they don't need the money. Right. You know?
Oh, that's true.
So, and then maybe you have this other artist which thinks more about his creativity and everything that he needs to do in order to have all his needs fulfilled, and then also make art, which maybe it will lead to, well, it is, if it's the art that I'm making, it is impactful or not, is it making a difference or not? Because at the end of the day, you're making it just because you wanted to, right? It's not because you're looking for fame or you're looking for money. It's just because you want to.
Right. I think maybe another element to think about as a sign of success, right? Mm-hmm. Another sign of success can be, what does it mean to your personal family, right? Some people make art to get approval from their circle, their nuclear family. Yeah. Some people make their art, whether it's music or visual art or sculpture or any kind of art, dance or whatever. Artists might be motivated by appreciation, acceptance from their immediate family. Maybe you want your father to appreciate your work, or your mother to appreciate your work, or to understand your work. Maybe they don't understand your work. Maybe you're a cartoonist doing anime, and this anime that you do, your family is from El Salvador, and they don't even know what anime is. Maybe they don't care what anime is. Or maybe you're a musician, and I'll use a very common one. Maybe you're a hip-hop artist, right? You like hip-hop, or now it's trap, right? Or whatever it might be. And your lyrics are dark and street, and your family doesn't understand it, because your family doesn't understand what the hell you're talking about. Why are you doing this style of music? And you might spend a good portion of your career just trying to get them to understand it, and pursuing that. I don't know if you have anything on that perspective, but your brother's
that's what I was thinking about him.
So introduce your brother.
So my brother, he's a reggaeton artist now, a reggaeton singer, and he's starting his career, and obviously his songs are very provocative.
Right. So reggaeton is a version of reggae, but Latin, Spanish, and he's in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he's in Puerto Rico. So it's basically kind of like a trap, but in Spanish. But his style is like trap and reggaeton together, mixed up. So his lyrics are very provocative and very sensual and sexual and everything. And I've heard comments from my mom, coming from my mom, saying like, I don't understand what he's singing. But maybe, that's the way he starts, because those are the lyrics that gain the attention of the people that he wants to get the attention from, the young people that are listening to trap, that are listening to reggaeton, that are listening to all this stuff. But even though his lyrics are so impactful and strong, he still has the support from his family. His mother supports him a lot, and my sister too. So I think like it depends, because when they see you that you have worked so hard, like for example he had worked since high school. He knew he wanted to be a reggaeton artist. Now I think he's 27. After they have seen you working so hard on something, and then they finally see you in shows and presentations and stuff like that, maybe they start to understand where you're coming from and what was everything you were doing about.
Right. No, acceptance. So that's another element that is a little more personal, and maybe a lot of people might not want to acknowledge. But, on this podcast, we acknowledge all the personal stuff because we're speaking directly into your ear. But no, I think that's another element people don't talk about. They talk about money, they talk about fame, but do they talk about family acceptance and friend, or even acceptance from your peers?
Yeah.
That you want your peers to accept your art.
Yeah. That is true, actually.
That's another thing that people chase, and that is a sign of success, that you feel you've made it. Sometimes when you have that, when you acquire that. Another thing that I could think of that maybe I might look into the future is I have sons. They're teens, and maybe one day I might be looking to have them accept me, and that might be another sign of success for myself. The day that my sons will say, "Wow, Dad, like, I really see what you're doing." I think my sons right now kind of they see what I do, and they're like, "But you're Dad, whatever." But maybe in some cases, you might look at older artists. Some of you listeners might not think this way, unless if you have children. But there might come an age that you might reach where you might be looking at the next generation and saying, "How do my sons accept me? And wouldn't that make me feel good? And wouldn't that be success?"
Yeah.
So I think maybe success evolves.
I think so. Yeah.
With age, maybe in the beginning it's fame, then later it's money.
Yeah.
And then, are we getting like we're getting a little grit there for you guys?
Yeah, I think I actually, that might be it, because that happens with a lot of artists and actors and people that start in TV shows, let's say, or movies. They start really young, and when they start really young, they get all the fame and they get all this attention, and they get the money too, because obviously they're working with all these producers and directors and all that. But when they get to a certain age, I think they start to realize what is important, and that happens to a lot of actors, at least, or singers also.
Yeah, I think I could think of a lot of musicians that might have started in one genre, and as they got older, evolved, and then they lose their old crowd and they gain a new crowd, a new audience, and they get criticized. And I think that evolution, is common. It's just that we don't really pay attention to because we're followers of certain musicians, and then we kind of stop listening to them, and we don't follow them to see what's their next evolution.
Except reggaeton artists. Reggaeton singers, they're always singing reggaeton. You see Daddy Yankee started when he was 18, 17. He's now 40-something, and he's still doing the dura.
Oh, God. I would say for myself, an artist, like a musician that I could say evolved, a big evolution was Sting.
I was thinking about him too.
Sting from The Police. Sting started in a band called The Police back in the 70s. He went through the 80s, the 90s, as part of this band. It was a regular old rock, pop, ska band. Yeah. And then they evolved and became icons. And then he moved on to become like a jazz pop singer. And it's incredible. I mean, I see the things that he does, and I'm like, wow, he really evolved. I could think of maybe a few other rock bands that have evolved that way, a few singers that have evolved. In Spanish music, I think some of the salseros might have evolved from very common salsa to more political, or maybe more topical, or maybe more romantic.
And then you have the ones that started very cultural, the Carlos Vives.
Oh, yeah.
And then became a little bit more street.
And then a little more pop and a little more...
and a little bit more pop, because they wanted to get that attention again.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm sure you guys out there listening probably have your own examples of musicians that have evolved, or maybe visual artists that have evolved. I think I could think of visual artists evolutions if you think of the famous ones, because we always look at the famous ones, but let's say a Picasso. Picasso, I know he started very figurative, and he learned and was trained in a very figurative way. Eventually he landed on this cubism where it was very abstract, and people criticized him for that, but he could care less. And I think that's something that's what made him an icon for art, as an artist, not just as a visual artist, but as an artist in the terms of a human being who's an artist, a creative. Mm-hmm. That he really could care less. He made his fame that way. I think that's something that we all look for in artists, right? So success, to wrap it up, you got success as markings, you got money, you got fame, you got family acceptance. You got peer recognition. Yeah. And then you have the future iconic, pieces that if you've made that iconic piece, or you might make several iconic pieces, but they could be counted on your hand how many, that could be a mark of success, for the long run. Yeah. If you like what we've been talking about in this section, #ArtLife. Continue the conversation. Tag us if you have a comment, or post on our post, a comment. Let us know. On Instagram, we're #CortesNYC Livestream. On Facebook, we're #CortesNYC Livestream. And with that, we will continue on. Culture talk. This is my favorite section. This is Carla's baby. Culture talk, #culture talk. This is where we talk about different cultural issues, whether they be Latino issues or they be art culture issues, or topics, not issues, but just topics, things to talk about. So on this one, Carla, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so on this one, we're going to talk about TV shows that present the Latino experience. So basically, we're going to discuss some TV shows that might present a Latino experience that is true, that is not true. Maybe they're exaggerating some stuff.
English speaking.
Yeah, English speaking. So basically, TV shows made in the United States.
Correct.
Yeah.
So not novelas.
No novelas.
Not Univision.
No, not Univision.
Not telenovelas. Not, what's your favorite telenovela?
What's my favorite telenovela? María la del Barrio.
Not María del Barrio, right? Not those, right? We're not talking about that.
No, we're not talking about those.
We're talking about American TV shows, Netflix shows, cable shows, old TV shows. Yeah.
All these shows that everybody loves, but I don't. No. Some of them I do. But let's get into it. For example, let's talk about Narcos.
Blah.
Everybody loves Narcos. I don't know why. The accent is so horrible. I think I only saw, 10 minutes of it?
And there was like one Colombian, and everybody else was like
from
Puerto
Brazil.
Rican, Brazil.
Uh-huh. and their accent was...
Guzman was in it.
Yeah,
Luis Guzman is in it. From the Bronx. Luis
yeah.
Guzman from the Bronx is on Narcos.
Yeah.
How do you expect me to take that seriously?
Exactly. And they were presenting the life of this guy, Pablo Escobar, right?
Yeah.
But it was so horrible, so bad. And I think one of the problems that we have as Latinos is that most of TV shows or movies are presenting Latinos as gang members, as people that
drug dealers,
as people that has guns, that they're violent, and that's not true. That's not true for us. And when people come here to the United States and they really want to work and they really want to do something, they're not fucking selling drugs.
No, I mean, look, there's, in my family's Colombian. Okay, they all came from Colombia, so I'm first generation born in New York. I grew up in the time, in the 80s. I was born in 70. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. For me, the Narcos back then, the TV show back then, was Miami Vice. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Miami Vice time. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Miami Vice dragged Colombians through the mud.
Yeah.
Because back then, it was the whole Reagan-Bush era, the quote-unquote war on drugs. Now we have a quote-unquote war on terrorism and ISIS. And and if you guys, you younger people listening can identify with this, the equivalent to your war on internet bullying and war on ISIS was my time, the war on drugs, say no to drugs campaign, all this stupid shit. And the people that were the bad guys back then were the Colombians. Mm-hmm. Generic Colombians. Not specific Colombians. They never said back then, Pablo Escobar and these people and these people. They just said Colombians.
All Colombians.
The Colombians are the bad ones. The Colombians.
Yeah.
And I grew up in that time period and just, I think I learned back then to realize that the stereotypes are going to be coming hot and heavy. And so when I see Narcos now, we're in the 2000s, and I see Narcos, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I can't believe they still have a show like this, and I can't believe that they do it so poorly.
Exactly.
I would have respected it more if by this time they would have at least had authentic Colombian actors, authentic Colombian scripts, and got into the culture of Pablo Escobar and all that a little closer where I could actually learn something. So I'll move on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, there was actually a novela that it was made about Pablo Escobar, and that made more sense. It was all in Spanish, obviously, but I think that made more sense than this Narcos bullshit. Okay, so following with The Get Down. The Get Down was more about hip hop, but it did include a Puerto Rican family, and I think that the main guy, he was kind of Latino too. Wasn't he? Yeah, his family was Puerto Rican.
So I would say because the girl definitely was.
The girl was Puerto Rican, but his family had.
You're talking about the actor. You're talking about the character.
The character.
I know that the girl was playing a Spanish-ish character.
Yeah.
I think shows like that are a good example of where you try to introduce a Latin element, but you don't go all the way in. So now, for me, it's hard for me to remember. Was there
exactly?
What was Latin?
I think exactly that was the problem about that show, that it just gave you a little bit of Spanish words, and you would think
lot. There was a lot. There was Spanish songs and everything.
Yeah, but
they were speaking Spanish and all this shit, and I can't remember.
But they were not going
it's generic shit.
Exactly, they were not going into the culture. That's what I mean. That just because they're talking Spanish doesn't mean that they're showing the culture. And what is it about?
Right.
And then continuing with a different one. This one is different. It's a little bit fun. It was called Devious Maids. And I love this show. This show was hilarious.
Devious Maids was great.
And it was so great because even though they were portraying the maid side.
It's a bad show.
No, come on. It was good. It was fun. Even though they were portraying Latinas were made, they were so smart and they were doing all this stuff. There was yes. So
that was a novela.
It was a novela
in English.
It was a novela. It was a novela. So in Devious Maid, you had the four main characters. There were 4 Latinas, and they were a group of friends, and they were all maids, but they all had a different style, a different life. After being maids. So one was a mom, another one wanted to be a singer and an actress, another one, I don't know, was a rich person trying to be a maid. So I think that it was interesting because they didn't present it just the maid as, oh my God, she's so saint and pure and she's just doing this because she needs money, but they presented no, this girl they know that they're doing this because they want to get out of this life and do something else.
They had different motivations. Also, they had different, I don't know if I want to say education levels, but there was one that was really smart, another one that was like a little more just, regular old girl, just
humble.
Just trying to get by.
Yeah.
And I think they presented that in an interesting way. The only thing that I would say I can't remember from that show was if they showed diversity racially. I don't think they did that, and I think that made it more novela-ish.
Yeah.
Because they only focused on the light-skinned Latinas.
Right. Yeah.
That was the only element that I was like, it's
true.
Whatever. All right.
Yeah. So continuing to one of my all-time favorites, One Day at a Time.
Wait, this is a current favorite. This is not all-time. All-time is if you...
Okay, but now it became an all-time. Come on.
All-time means that it happened 20 years ago, and this is my all-time favorite because I've seen so many
I
after
don't care.
this.
It's an all-time. So One Day at a Time is a TV show.
A Netflix show.
A Netflix show, yeah. Because
it's a remake, actually. So...
Yeah, you explain the background.
I'll explain the background because I'm from that generation. So it's a One Day at a Time is actually a remake of an old show that I grew up on called One Day at a Time that was about a single mother with, raising her two daughters. And it was just basically a little nuclear family of a mom and two daughters, and how they were growing up in this apartment building, and they had the super of the building was this crazy white guy. Schneider was his name.
Yeah, Schneider.
And basically it was just a basic white family in America growing up, and the theme song and everything was like, oh, we're gonna take everything one day at a time, we're gonna handle things and problems one day at a time.
But this version of One Day at a Time showed you a Cuban family in LA, and in the apartment you had the mom, the son, the daughter, and the abuelita. Obviously the abuelita cannot stay behind, and then you have the crazy super white guy, which was, say the name again. Schneider.
Yeah.
But I think that One Day at a Time is one of it's an example of a good show where they show you the stereotypes and the things that Latino they really do, and more Cuban families, but also they show you how you can change the way you think being in a Latino family and being an outsider from a Latino family. So they deal with a lot of issues that are going on right now in the political environment, in society and everything.
Yeah, they deal with politics, they deal with Latinx issues, they deal with the daughter in this, the daughter's gay.
She's lesbian.
Yeah, and then
she's a feminist, and she's really outspoken, and she want to fight, and she want to do all this stuff.
Schneider is a Canadian who is very he's self-centered in a way because he's a very typical hipster living in a Latin community, but at the same time he reveals a three-dimensional character where he also wants to be accepted into the Latin community. He wants to learn Spanish. He wants to. He identifies with the people that he's around. So they deal with a lot of interesting topics. I think they did a good update. To the old show. The actors, I think are pretty good. I think that the character of the mother, developed her very well.
Yeah, she does it very well.
The grandmother is a pretty typical cliche character, but they handle her pretty well.
Yeah, but she changed, and you can see also her development through the story, which is cool. And I like that because it presents a real story of the Latino experience, which is what we're looking for.
Even the son, who seems very one-dimensional in the beginning, ends up becoming a very well-rounded character later on. Yeah. So One Day at a Time is a recommendation.
Yeah, watch it, Netflix. Another interesting show is Los High.
Los High, that was a funny show.
Yeah, Los High is presented for me a different view of Chicanos and Mexicans in LA, because I never saw that.
It's basically a high school show, right? It's like a 90210 or
It's like a Bring It On, but a TV show. But yeah.
Yeah, a novela.
Yeah, what a
for
novela.
Teens. Yeah, teen novela.
Because it was so like a high school show, right? And they had the most important thing about it is that they have a dance group, and they were competing against other schools.
And skonkas. They had
And
skonkas.
yeah, and the ones that were not part of the crew, they were skonkas.
That was a cool show. I think it was funny because it showed. They did a good job of throwing a few elements in there that maybe on the East Coast we don't get to hear so much about.
Yeah.
But it was drowning in novela
No, yeah. Then
drama.
after I think the third season or something like that, it went into like drugs and all these things happened to this one character, and she had so many boyfriends. She was a lesbian, then she had a boyfriend, then she ended up with the boy. I don't know, a whole novela thing. Yeah, that was Is Lost, but it was very funny and it was interesting to see. If you have never had that experience, to go to the West Coast, maybe you can see that and maybe have, I don't know, an idea of what it is. It's not real though, but just have that idea. And then another one is Orange is the New Black.
The Latino characters. I don't remember the Latino characters.
I remember the one of the ladies that she was like kind of older. She was Latina, and I remember the one that the boyfriend was the police officer. She was Latina, and I think she was pregnant or something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if she was pregnant, but one of the things is that, well, this stereotype of Latinas being violent and then being incarcerated or being in jail, for them to have Latina's character in a jail, it's kind of like stereotype.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's cool because they mixed that up with Latinas being very violent and very weird, and then these white girls, they had also African American girls. So it was an interesting like diversity there in the show.
True.
Yeah.
You wanted me to teach you, right?
All right. So let's move on to
Hablando español.
speaking Spanish.
Yes.
Let's start speaking Spanish, people.
So
Carla,
let's
what do you
start-
got for us this week?
Okay, so this time, like the last time, we're gonna try to teach you some words that are related to what we talked about in the show. So, for example, reconocimiento.
What? What is that? A lot of Americans might not be ready. They might not be ready.
Recognition.
Recognition is
Reconocimiento.
reconocimiento. So it's soft R roll, not hard R roll.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm
It's not-
so
it's not-
extra. I'm so extra.
Reconocimiento.
No, reconocimiento. I'm sorry. I just wanted
No,
to
it's not your fault.
emphasize.
I'm just teaching them a little bit of the R. Sometimes it's a heavy roll and sometimes it's a light roll.
Like in carro,
That's
a heavy. But then reconocimiento, because it's the beginning of the word, is very
Light.
light.
Just a little.
But you
a
still
little
have
roll.
you still have to have it.
Okay.
So
that
reconocimiento
means
recognition.
very good.
Yeah. And then we go with trabajo.
Trabajo.
Trabajo, which can mean a job or can mean work.
Right. Literally
Work?
it means work. Literally it means.
Or it can be a job because tengo un
Yeah.
trabajo, so
But I mean, in English we say that also. I got a job. I got work. I have work to do.
yeah.
So trabajo is work.
Trabajo.
Trabajo. Soft roll. Tra.
Exactly.
You don't realize you're doing it, huh?
I know. And then profesional, which means professional. So
Profesional. Okay.
it's like a different accentuation when you say it. Profesional. Professional.
Profesional.
Profesional.
Got it.
Then you have artístico, which means artistic.
Artístico.
Artístico.
Soft roll
I'm
again.
sorry.
Artístico.
Artístico. Is that if I don't say it, then I don't say it at all,
No,
because
then-
then
and
my
then
Puerto Rican comes
And then you
in.
throw the L in.
Exactly.
No, don't
So
throw the L in.
exactly. So I either had to do it hard or I don't do it at all.
Artístico.
Artístico. That's
Okay.
right.
Artístico.
Artístico.
Okay, next.
And then you have creativo.
Creativo. I like that. Creativo.
Creativo. Tienes que ser creativo. You gotta be creative.
Creativo. Creative.
Creativo. Be creative. And then also we have expresión.
Expresión. Expression.
Expression. Yeah.
Expresar.
Expresar will be express. And then
Express yourself. Expresarte.
yeah. And then
Expresar.
expresión means expression.
Nice.
Yeah. So those are the words for our Hablando Español. I hope you guys enjoyed it and enjoyed the R's and the R.
Yeah. All right. So, as always, you can hashtag us Cortesnyc Livestream.
Yeah, on Instagram, if you made anything during this episode or you have anything you want to share, just hashtag Cortesnyc Livestream on Instagram, also on Facebook.
And if you like what you hear, subscribe
Yeah,
and follow us
yeah,
and contribute, because your contributions will lead to more discussions in the future, and more feedback brings more content. So
definitely. If you have any topic that you want us to talk about, maybe we can do it in the future. Just comment in our post or send us a DM on Instagram, however you like it.
all right. And there you go. We're wrapping up episode 2, Cortesnyc Livestream, the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in, paying attention. Thank you for your comments. Next episode, episode 3, we will have, the subject will be organized, and we will have a conversation about how to stay organized, how to stay focused and productive and as efficient as possible as artists. That's a very difficult task for most artists.
And on our hashtag Culture Talk, we're gonna be talking about Latinos in sci-fi TV shows.
And as always, our
We're
last
gonna
section will be
Hablando Español.
speaking Spanish.
Yes.
We'll bring you more words for you guys to share with your peers.
Yeah. And let us know, actually, if the words are helping you.
Exactly. All right, guys. Until next time.
Bye-bye.